Hello everyone. Welcome to In Conversation series with Dr. Ved Rana. So we will be decoding some IR themes today with Kamakshi Vasan. Kamakshi Vasan is the Chief Operating Officer at global level at the Lotama Foundation, which actively practices Tier 2 diplomacy. And she is also the Director of Academic Program. So it will be really useful for all aspirants who are giving interview at this level. So the first basic question, Kamakshi, is that since you are practicing Tier 2 diplomacy, can you just differentiate for enlighten our audience what is Tier 1, Tier 2 and Tier 3 diplomacy with some specific examples?
Thank you so much, Dr. Rana. So, Tier 1 is a diplomacy in which the governments, the countries specifically talk to each other directly, specifically talking about the leaders of the countries like India, China, India, US, India, Russia. For example, the leaders talking to each other, like the Prime Minister talking to each other on a global level is Tier 1. And in terms of talking about the Tier 2 diplomacy, it is an indirect approach in which the representatives of these countries, the respective countries, for example, the ambassadors, the special envoys, they communicate, they take part in track 2 diplomacy and the dialogues in which they can bolster and strengthen the relation between the two countries together. In Tier 3 diplomacy, it is a people-to-people diplomacy in which government uses or has these non-governmental organizations like the foundations, the think tanks, and the civil society groups, in which they try to provide the information, advocacy, analysis based on the current events, the happenings. For example, there are many organizations which are currently working, like for example, the Lotma Foundation is also actively working in this field, to promote the accurate information and talk about the various diverse issues which are happening around the world. So yeah.
Okay, that's quite a good explanation for the beginners. So 2023 is about to end, and this was a year which will be long remembered in history, as where two decisive wars were fought between two specific regions like Russia-Ukraine, as well as we had Israel-Palestine conflict is still ongoing. So how do you rate India's diplomatic response in these two specific zones?
I would say this in 3 words. I think the approach India has was cautious, very pragmatic, and balanced.
Okay, that's a pragmatic stance. But that's all right. And COP28 has just concluded, and some are hailing it as litany of loopholes, while some are saying that it's beginning of era of end of fossil fuels. So, if you have to choose one specific positive outcome from this COP and one some negative setback which could have been better, what it would be?
So, in terms of talking about the positive outcomes, I would say that COP28 actually is the first time it recognized the fossil fuel, the transition which should happen, the need to transition away from the fossil fuels, and the need along with how the global the countries, how they saw this as an opportunity to to work on it, and also they addressed this whole concept that how there is a major loophole which needs to be eradicated, because as we all know that fossil fuel is like the major driver for climate change. So this could be the positive outcome. In terms of talking about the setback, I would say the lack of new and adequate financial commitments of the developed countries to support developing countries, in a way to help them or in their efforts basically to adapt the climate impact and also to transition to clean energy.
Yes, we can clearly see that almost only $800 million have been promised for loss and damage fund, but eventually every year $400 billion are lost to disaster. So we can say a lot more can be done in this field as well. Also, we look at international groupings, and since you are handling lot of forums and you are speaking on them, which international forums, especially at regional level, if you look at say SCO or BIMSTEC or SARC and recently Quad as well, which is, if you have to choose one, which one would be the better for India's geopolitical interest in long term interest, if we have to pick some one specific group?
So there are many groupings in which India is part of, for example, SCO, G20, BRICS, Quad. But I think I have my eye on Quad because the Quad summit was about to happen in January, but due to some reason it's postponed. But I believe Quad is very much inclined towards our activist policy, and it also is, inclined towards the Indo-Pacific. And Indo-Pacific is like the major hub nowadays for like India. It is a major form of interaction, and along with that, Quad has the top global powers involved, like India, US, Japan, Australia, and I think all these four economies, these four countries together can do so much more. And I think if we would put more effort in these dialogues in the decision making process, we can definitely see some fruitful outcomes. So I think Quad.
After First World War, we have seen emergence of League of Nations, but it could not deliver. Then after Second World War, UN emerged as a global institution which people were looking at. But in recent years, we have seen that UN is no longer actively able to solve the real challenges. It's only interfering in case of South America or African, they like loophole. Whenever major power is involved, lot of global UN prize there, that's not delivering. So what, according to you, ails UN at this point of time?
I think in terms of talking about the UN's, I think it can be the lack of political support, the political will, and also the usage of the veto power, because there are these member states, which use the permanent representatives of the Security Council, who, if the things are not according to their interest, they try to block the actions, or
So
don't take
expansion
stand
of
for it.
UN is the right way. Should India be a member of the Security Council as a permanent member?
I think yes, India should be the part of it, and I think now we are seeing a lot of changes in terms of UN is also recognizing a lot of our efforts. And as I said, the political will, India has always abstained for the fact that it is not on either side, but that also doesn't prove that India is not helping other people also. We are very neutral with our approach, and as I said, the usage of veto power is there, that people try to use it, because they don't want things as per, if the things are not happening as per their will, they would like to block it. Along with this, I think there can be another reason is the lack of funding the resources, which is a very common area for UN to, the problem is there. And thirdly, it can be the old time decision making process, the representation. I think it needs to be upskilled. It needs to be, on a very futuristic way, so that we can have more better dialogues, more better understanding of each other's interests, and then can take decisions accordingly.
Okay, so India recently celebrated its 75 years of independence, Amrit Mahotsav. So if we look back in time, and if you have to pick some specific policy initiatives by Indian foreign policy, what it would be, which you feel have changed our course, or it should be remembered in long term once we reach 2047 milestone?
So I think the non-line movement, NAM, would be first. Then the low-case policy, which was started by the then Prime Minister Narasimha Rao. I think the beginning of the thinking to even have better relations with the southeast and the east nations, the countries, that was like a very good move. And after that, when the low-case policy was later shifted to the act-based policy by our Prime Minister Narendra Modi, I think that was due to the expansion, because he was trying to focus on how India can seek an engagement with the countries. Along with that, how can India can look up to the challenges and the opportunities which are posed by China, because as we all know that there is a lot of Chinese involvement in most of the areas. And I think yes, these three can be the NAM, the non-line movement, and the low-case policy and the act-based policy.
Okay, and any concluding remarks for aspirants for preparing IR? If you have to guide them, give some quick tips that how they should go about this subject. That would be really beneficial.
I think don't look IR as something which is very actually complex as it looks. It's actually more practical. If you try to go towards the practical orientation of things, because through our dialogues also we always make sure that we provide a practicality of things, and even through my own work, I make sure that things should look more seamless. So when you are studying for international relations, try to don't try to sum things up. Try to understand that why a certain thing has happened in a certain way, and each thing is well connected with each other. I think so. Remembering that is quite important, and yeah, just make sure that you are consistent with your approach, because things would take time for you to understand. But if you are consistently, learning, understanding, you can definitely crack it. Yeah.
Thank you everyone for joining. We wish you all the best for upcoming examinations, especially all those who are preparing in UPSC interview. We'll be back soon with another set of series on some dynamic IR themes. So stay tuned. Have a nice day.